Hi, I'm Roger Bouchard from Brocade. I'm a global solutions architect specializing in SAN security and encryption solutions. So what I'll be talking to you about this time around is specifically the subject of SAN security and the importance of SAN security. Typically in my conversations that I have with literally thousands of customers and partners around the world around SAN security, it's kind of interesting. So on the one hand, you have the storage people who are responsible for managing the day-to-day operations of the actual storage environment, which includes the backups and the disk arrays and the LUNs and that sort of thing. And then we have to address the whole security component, which is generally addressed by a different group of individuals. And these are the security people, the compliance teams, and the security teams in the organization. And these two groups, the storage group and the security groups, don't generally talk to each other. And they have very different ways of looking at things. So the storage people, on the one hand, of course, they're concerned about performance and they're concerned about uptime availability. They're concerned about making sure that things are simple and run smoothly and provide storage to their customers within the organization. Whereas the security folks, on the other hand, are more concerned about protecting those assets that reside within, for example, the network or specifically on the storage side. But historically, what seems to happen, because the two groups don't naturally talk to each other, you have the storage people that don't really know a lot about security in general. There are, of course, exceptions to this rule. But also, there is a prevalent attitude from the storage people that, of course, security adds a lot of overhead and actually is a lot more work. It's more complex to add, and it actually becomes preventive or gets in the way of actually accomplishing things. And then on the other hand, you got these network security people who are typically very strong on conventional network technology. And then they look at the SAN, the storage area network, and they see that as some kind of a network, obviously, but they don't quite understand exactly how it works and how different it is from a conventional TCP/IP based LAN. So what's happening in this case is the security people, the typical security people, sort of just kind of put the SAN aside, and they basically don't include it as part of the SAN or the security policies in the company. And the storage people, of course, are certainly not pushing for increased security as well. So there's a bit of a gap between the two organizations. So I think it's important to start bridging this gap, and I'm certainly seeing that happening over time, particularly with the security people who are becoming a little bit more aware and realizing that there is just too much data and sensitive information now residing within a SAN, and you can't ignore it anymore. You have to take measures to at least look at it and protect it. So my recommendation is very simple. Actually every single company that I've ever interviewed has a security policy already in place for the IT environment or addressing the network. But for some reason, this IT security policy is never or rarely applied to the actual storage environment. So a simple example, if the IT security policy requires system administrators to log into a server using secure shell, to use a secure channel to manage the particular server. That's part of the IT security policy. Very simple to do, use SSH instead of Telnet. For some reason, though, the same policy that applies to the servers, management of the servers and the network are not applied to the SAN piece. So we have SAN administrators logging into the switches, logging into the disk arrays using Telnet instead of SSH, whereas the policy clearly states thou shalt use SSH. There are a lot of specific things that you can do that apply specifically to the SAN environment. You have role-based access controls. You have secure channels that you can manage. You have zoning. You have different authentication methods. So there are a lot of different things that you can use. However, to keep things simple, actually, I think what would go a long way is to simply take the IT security policy that already exists, that the system administrators are already familiar with to some extent, and simply apply it to the SAN. Just apply it. And I think that would simply address a big part of the issues. It would also correct a lot of the problems. And then, of course, later on down the road, once this is done, then you can start tweaking it and including specific SAN-related items from a security perspective to include within the IT security policy to improve the overall security of a SAN.